Before we get very far into our next story, we do have a warning for you tonight. What you're about to see and hear may not be suitable for children. Tonight, take a walk in their world.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Transpicuous News. It is February 19th. Next day, I said I was taking the weekend off, unless something happened, and guess what? Something's happening. I've already discussed this, and we discussed it again yesterday, about how SpaceX is taking a deadly bacteria up to this ISS Space Station to, I don't know, test or do all kinds of stuff, right? And I've already had my say on what I feel about that. Thought it was like, okay, so it was supposed to have been yesterday, the launch, it got put off. Now they're gonna launch today in, just over an hour, apparently. And then someone threw me a link to an article today. And it just so happened the difference between this article versus the other articles I'd read was they went into a little more detail about who was involved in the mission. Yeah. Yeah. Needless to say, I've spent the last couple of hours going, you've got to be fucking kidding me. And that's why I'm back. Okay, so let's go take a look. So, like I said, SpaceX rocket is poised for a second launch from a historic NASA launch pad at Cape Canaveral, which I found was kind of interesting. The one little piece down here is that SpaceX is leasing this pad from NASA. They started in 2014 and is spending upwards of $100 million to ready it for a variety of NASA commercial and military launches. Military launches, eh? Would that be what this is? Oh, we'll get there. So, the article that caught my attention was one from Popular Mechanics, which is a well-known fucking agenda, shall we say, pushing publication. But the difference between their article and the other ones is it went into a little more detail about exactly who's going to be playing with this deadly MRSA bacteria. Okay, so the next SpaceX launch will carry a deadly bacteria. Sending it into space might give us an early look at what the future holds. Really. Now, here's the thing. So I went through here and it said down here, once the Falcon 9 rocket gets to the ISS, the MRSA will find its way into the hands of Dr. Anita Goel, the CEO of NanoBioSim. Really? So our first stop is we're going to discuss who is this person and what is NanoBioSim and what are they all about and where do they get their money? So first off, I just want to talk about this interesting, certain terms keep coming up in different articles, and I am a stickler for words. And I am a stickler for looking at words that are being used perhaps in a different context. And I very much look for the pieces that don't belong. When I look at an article, a news article, anything, I look for the piece that doesn't belong in the article because that's where my focus goes. The one word that keeps coming up over and over again in this article, several other news articles, and on the NanoBioSim website is the word leverage. We will leverage the microgravity environment on the ISS to accelerate the precision medicine revolution here on Earth. Right, leverage. Now, leverage, you can talk about, using a lever, leveraging something physical. But most of the time when you talk about leverage, especially in the last 2 decades, the instant definition that comes to mind is the financial, i.e. leveraging your money, leveraging your investments, which is a really important point that we're going to get back to. But just note how many times the word leverage gets used. Oh, and the other word is deployment. Interesting choice of words. Okay, so follow me on this here. Okay, and my whole screen just grayed out for some reason. It's okay, we got to the important stuff that I wanted to see from the popular mechanics crap. So we went through and I went and looked. So NASA had put out an article back on November 11th in 2016, sorry, November 22nd, 2016, talking about the ISS Science for Everyone, right? Proof of concept for the gene radar, predictive pathogen mutation study. Okay, the X Prize winning device can accurately detect any disease that has a genetic fingerprint. Again, interesting choice of terminology, hold that thought, in real time at the point of care. Technically, purportedly, that is what they're going to be using, is an invention by this doctor at the NanoBioSims that is called the, what did they just call it again? Sorry, the gene radar. Okay, so I went and looked at the company. Well, let's just look at this company. First of all, the 3 things: nanotechnology, biomedicine, and symbiosis. Interesting. Now I want to scroll down here to something here. This is their corporate mission statement. And I want to just read you through a few pieces. So NanoBioSim is an innovation engine dedicated to creating new science that emerges from the holistic integration of physics, biomedicine, and nanotechnology. That should all be like your little cue up there for everyone out there, nanotech. It focuses on incubating transformational technologies that have the potential for game-changing impact and commercializing and scaling up these technologies for deployment in developed and developing world markets. NBS leverages science and technology to address our planet's greatest unmet needs, blah, 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 blah. It focuses on the commercialization of the Gene Radar, a portable nanotechnology platform that can rapidly and accurately detect genetic fingerprints from any biological organism. Number 1, that means you, just saying, but also means biological organisms, a tracking device, okay? NanoBioSim Global Initiative is building innovative public-private partnerships with governments and NGOs and academics, et cetera, et cetera. Now, on the surface, when you read a little bit about what these guys talk about, and a little bit about the CEO of the company, you might think, oh, you know, they're just healthcare. They're really trying to help the world, and they're just, you know, doing their darndest. Yeah, until you learn who their funders are and who funds all the research. NanoBioSim CEO Dr. Anita Goel testifies at the US Senate, harnessing nanotechnology to drive a new global economy. Oh, what did I say about the word leveraging? And now they're talking about driving a new global economy? I'll get back to this in a second because I don't want to get sidetracked quite yet. So Dr. Goel founded the NanoBioSim Inc. as an innovative engine, blah, 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 physics, medicine, all the rest of it. Her work at NanoBioSim has been recognized by multiple rounds of competitive funding from the United States Department of Defense agencies, including DARPA and the Air Force and the US Threat Detection. Did I say DARPA? Oh, snap. Everything you read about this reads like the who's who in the US defense arsenal and the US tech defense arsenal. So there's a little interesting article here. There was an interview with her on the Huffington Post, I think it was in 2015. Women in business, blah, 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 blah. And we want to go down here. She's talking about her experience. She says this is while she's doing her, completing her clinical training at Massachusetts General Hospital as part of her science training program. I received a chance call from a team of US military and DARPA officers looking to develop the next generation capabilities for pathogen detection for unanticipated threats like anthrax, and bioterrorism, and pandemic outbreaks like SARS. Well, first point, anthrax, SARS, bird flu, swine flu, take your pick of all of them, are all bioweapons that were created by the United States Department of Defense. Don't you find it interesting that DARPA would ask her to basically make a tracing system to be able to detect the pathogens of these bioweapons and bioterrorism weapons? I find that interesting. Go on down here. So she talks about how she had to go through or jump through all sorts of hoops and do this, that, and the other, basically resulting in the US government doubling our funding and leading to multiple awards from the US Defense Advanced DARPA, the US Air Force Office of Scientific Research, the Department of Energy, and the United States Defense Threat Reduction Agency. You can't even say that. It does not roll off the lips. Okay? And she talks about her Gen Radar, which is able to track anything that has a genetic footprint or fingerprint, so to speak. So besides being able to obviously use it to track a person that has DNA and a genetic fingerprint, it can track any biological factor, i.e. viruses, bacterias, etc. Now, hold on just one quick second. Okay, it's a mobile diagnostic platform the size of an iPad that provides anyone, anytime, anywhere, instant access to personalized information about their own health. That's kind of interesting too. Now, here's the thing. Tracking this information, tracking this, when you talk about, what was one of the words that they used here? Diagnostic tools. When you talk about tracking things, one of the articles that came up talked about the mutagenic capabilities and the studies in the need to research mutagenic, i.e. mutating abilities, but also goes heavily into nanotechnology. Mutating nanotechnology, is that what they're researching? Well, they're sending MRSA up into space, the most mutagenic, self-mutating, and always getting more powerful bacteria known to man at this point, pretty much, to space, where it should mutate that much faster and stronger. Now, it all comes back to they're supposedly studying it. But when DARPA is involved, and the US Department of Defense, and the Air Force, what are they trying to track? What kind of mutations are they trying to track? Because here's the thing. This same doctor is also well known for her work in Ebola. Now, if you've been following my work, you know that I have been researching Ebola for over 20 years now. It's kind of like a hobby, strange hobby that I have. So when the Ebola outbreak came out at the end of 2013, early 2014, I've been putting out continuous reports on it. And I'll put a link in, as I've made one kind of an update page that is just everything that I've written on the subject. And it goes into a lot of other stuff because you can't look at Ebola without looking at SARS, without looking at the H1N1, without looking at smallpox, without looking at, you get where I'm going. The one thing we know is that the Ebola outbreak was a genetically manufactured bioweapon that was put out there. I have the patent for you right here. Now, the patent talks about a chimeric vaccine. And as I say in the article, you can't create a chimeric vaccine unless you already have the chimeric virus for the vaccine to work against. You can't have one without the other. Now, the interesting part is John Rappaport, who's all of his coverage on a lot of this virology type stuff is always excellent, talked about at the time is like, what's the U.S. biowarfare research community doing in West Africa just before and during the Ebola outbreak? Now, here's the thing. If you're testing a bioweapon, you need to be able to see how far it spreads and how much it mutates, because anytime you're dealing with bacteria or a virus, as it goes from person to person, each level, so to speak, it will mutate. So you need to have a platform to be able to track the mutations and how far it's spreading. Is that what they're testing up there in the ISS? Or is it much more simple than that, that they're just creating the next bioweapon? Just saying. It's not like they don't have a habit of doing this shit all the time. Now, one of the things I talked about when I talk about vaccines, when I talk about, for example, Ebola, and they're trying to come up with a vaccine for Ebola, the H1N1, all of these SARS, these bioweapons, let's call them what they are, is one of the ways that they're pushing the global economic systems right now, because there's no money left. There is nothing left in the system. So you have to create something to generate at least pretend money. One of the main tools they're using right now is vaccines, is medical technology and medicines, by leveraging them and setting up derivatives on them. This is fact. This is one of the main ways that they make so much freaking money, which is one of the main reasons that people who are so brainwashed into vaccines can't comprehend, is just how much money drives or is the driving force behind vaccines. Leveraging, deployment. Why are these words being used? Some pretty big questions to ask. Now, like I said, that rocket is taking off in about 55 minutes from now. Might I suggest we all use our collective consciousness to say, I don't fucking think so. This is not something we all want to see happen. So let's just put our collective conscious on it of saying, I do not consent. And if the Galactic Federation wants to show up and blow it out of the sky, awesome. The unmanned rocket, I mean, not the space station, because I don't want to blow up people. But unmanned rockets, fair game, especially when they're carrying, let's call a bioweapon a bioweapon. Anyways, that's all I have to say. I'll be back soon. Bye, guys.